fire in The Hague. Last week it was about Orlando, but this week it was in the EMEA North version in The Hague. And at Sapphire the message was of course about SAP stuff, but a lot about sustainability. How do you do sustainability? There's a lot of interest for the topic, and which is good because we need to leave the earth for the next generation and the generation after that in a better shape than maybe it is today. Sustainability is difficult. How do you do sustainability? It is about trust. It is about traceability. It is about transparency. There is one solution that at least for me stood out during the Sapphire, is the GreenToken solution by SAP. And I'm very happy to announce today in our HANA Café that we have GreenToken as a topic for HANA Café. Welcome to HANA Café, the Netherlands.
You're playing like a little video.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we did want to play the leader of HANA Café, but something technically went wrong. It's difficult. Friday afternoon technology and in the studio.
It must be the blockchain.
I think it's a different.
I'm pretty sure it's a blockchain.
It's a blockchain somewhere.
Yeah, it's the blockchain.
Somewhere in the cloud, probably. Yeah, it's also different setup. So maybe it's too corporate.
Yeah. There's no table there.
It was
there's
your
no
feedback.
dark wood.
Yeah, usually sometimes we have beer on the table and try to do something different. And then Jan said it's really corporate.
Yeah, in space and stuff. At least I brought my own coffee. Otherwise I wouldn't have any as well.
Thanks, you brought one for me as well. Thank you
Cheers.
very much. Cheers. I think best thing is first to introduce our two guests for today. Maybe Gloria, I can start with you. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Gloria Figaroa. I'm working as a product expert as part of the GreenToken team, officially since September last year, but unofficially I've been working with James and the team for, I think, almost
2.5 years.
3 years
Oh,
now.
it's a long period, yeah.
Yeah, and in my role, well, I always say I wear many hats, so I do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice job.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Gloria. James?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is James Veale. I'm the co-founder of GreenToken by SAP, along with my fellow co-founder Nitin Jain. We founded GreenToken. We first started an idea way back in the end of 2018 and took us until about 2020 to get started with SAP, and I live in Australia.
Okay, it's a different time zone.
A little bit. So, kids, if you're watching this, you should be going back to bed.
Yeah, that's parentship from the far.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Jan, welcome.
Yeah, we're talking about hybrid work and remote work and that sort of thing, and this is remote parenting.
Yeah, remote parenting. That's
Very honored, by the way, that James came over for our podcast.
yeah, cool. Eh? Yeah.
The only reason, yeah.
No, I think you had so few of those events this week to combine everything, and yeah. All right. I think the best question to start with is the questions maybe for the audience. So if you have any questions, please fill them in the chat so that I can ask the questions to James and Gloria. If you have any question on the GreenToken solution, please let us know in the chat, and then I will ask them to James or Gloria. But the first question, difficult question, what is GreenToken?
Yeah, so look, my background and my co-founder Nitin's background, we were in something called commodity trading, and this is where, commodities are the world's raw materials, things like grains, things like petrochemicals, crude oil, and all of these are really necessary, important building blocks for our society. And back when we were doing that, people used to buy them based on just two things, and that's quality and price. Think of when you fill up your car, you look for the cheapest grade of fuel that's the right quality for your car. And there's lots of facts that get left out. Is this from an ethically produced source? Does this cause deforestation? Is this a lower carbon raw material? And the thing is, when you buy a finished good like a bottle of shampoo, all that information is printed on the side, and those, we call it those downstream products, those manufactured products. It's really easy to understand, what you're buying and whether it's good for the planet. But these great big mass bulk moved raw materials that occur at upstream, they come from many sources. They get traded in bulk, they get commingled, they get mixed, and there's never been a way really to say, well, what am I buying? Is it good for the environment? Is it lower carbon? Is it child labour free? Does it cause deforestation? You can't put that barcode label on a commodity. So that's GreenToken. We came up with a way to give you that visibility all the way back to the very start of the supply chain.
Yeah, I can imagine that quite complicated. For example, the example at Sapphire Keynote was about a coffee bean, and they explained that the coffee bean from the plant to the coffee cup that you just gave me. Thank you very much, Jan. How do you trace that, and how do you make it transparent? Because already during the transport, it changes ownership for what is it, 30 times or something?
Yeah, a lot of times.
But you can't stick a QR code on this specific coffee bean. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so we have 3 ideas. So the thing that we got rid of is the batch, and that horrifies people when you talk about SAP world, because the ERP is all based on batches. Goods received, a commercial invoice, and inventory level. But the problem with the batches, you can't mix them up very well. If I build 5 loads of raw material, 5 loads of coffee into a single silo I'm going to process, the ERP system will see that as 5 different deliveries. And when I consume them, we use a convenient, accounting rule like LIFO or FIFO. And we say we use the first one first and then the next one. But we know in the silo they're completely mixed together. So the real innovation is we got rid of the batch and we made something called a token. And a token represents a really small amount of whatever the underlying material is. So whether it's coffee or palm oil or grains or iron ore, it doesn't matter. But the token typically represents a very small amount, maybe a gram, a kilo. And that token's a digital twin. And we award to that token some characteristics, deforestation free, fair trade, whatever you want to.
It's a twin for the raw material.
A twin for the raw material. And then as that token travels down the supply chain, as the material travels down the supply chain, so we move the token. So when I sell to the processor, I sell 100 kilos of coffee, I'll put 100 kilos of token. And that means when we get to the very end, we get a finished product, coffee powder, shampoo derived from palm oil. That will come with some tokens, and those tokens will point right back to the origin.
But how do you then, sorry?
I was thinking, don't you have the same problem? I mean, you have this big silo, you throw everything inside. If you take a handful of it, you don't really know whether it's something that's not green or whether it's green, right?
Yeah, and so to do that, we use something called mass balance. And Gloria, I don't know if you want to let us know a bit about mass balance.
Now it's getting theoretical.
Well, I'm happy, but I mean...
Yeah, no, I can go ahead and explain that. So, as we were speaking earlier before, so mass balance is really one of the most important principles that we use within our solution. So mass balance in essence is a very simple accounting principle, which basically says that what comes in needs to equal what comes out, taking into consideration yield losses, conversion losses, and the transformation of your materials. So let's say that at the beginning of your supply chain, we put in 50%, 50 tons conventional palm oil, which may come from the deforestation areas, and 50 tons, so the other 50% sustainable palm oil, which has been certified and comes from ethical and environmentally friendly farms. So as James was also explaining, if you put these together early on in the supply chain, and these get processed, you basically have this mix. So at any point, if you take a cup of that palm oil, you can tell on a molecular level which molecule is sustainable, which one is not. So that's why you have mass balance, and basically since we've put in 50% sustainable in at the beginning of our supply chain, at each stage of the supply chain and also at the end of our supply chain, we can assign that ratio of 50% to our output products, but never more than that. So it helps to basically manage that, and also helps organizations to still benefit from the portion of sustainability that they put in.
So it's similar to what we have in the grid, in the electricity grid. I mean, you have
Yes.
one wall socket,
Yeah,
and that's supposed to provide green energy,
Yep.
yeah, exactly.
right? And you have multiple sources that provide it.
Hmm.
So it's very similar to that. But instead of
Yeah,
electrons, you're using molecules.
yeah, exactly.
Coffee beans.
So if
indeed,
you have this
yeah.
mix, so for example, you have 50% green and 50%
Yeah.
not green, but then you split it to two owners,
Mhm.
two buyers.
Yep.
That means that you then have 25% and 20. Is it going to split again or?
No, because if you think about it, so the way it works, why it's better than batches. So say I have a batch, the first batch was completely green, the next batch was completely conventional, the third batch. The current systems will force me to use LIFO, last in, first out. So I use the first one first. So the first product is 100% green. And then the next one is 100% conventional. So when I really know the real mix is 50-50. So when I sell the mix, I have a number of options. So I have my 100 tons, or
100 tons,
thank
yes.
you. So I'm going to sell 10 tons of the 100 tons. Now with GreenToken, when I sell it, I'll sell 10 tons of tokens with it, or past 10 tons, hard to say, 10 tons of tokens with it. And those tokens are at the ratio 50 green, 50 conventional. So I'm left with 90 tons, still 50-50, and what I've sold is actually 10 tons, 5 conventional, 5 green. So you can see how GreenToken automatically is reflecting what really is happening in the world, as opposed to the artificial FIFO, LIFO, which is convenient for ERPs, but doesn't really reflect the mix that we have. And the other great thing is, once you've established that ratio, once you've established a benchmark, you can say, well, all my sources, I'm 50% green, that's going to be my benchmark. Next year, let's make that 60% and 70%. Once you can measure something, you can actually go ahead and improve.
Yeah, that was one of the statements of last week for
Yeah.
Chris and Klein. If you
Yeah.
can't measure it, you can't manage it. No,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
also very important. So, okay, it's complex. It's mass balance is probably the solution in what you use. But then, okay, how do I then prove that I bought the right coffee beans or the right palm oil?
Yeah, so we actually did start. So being based in Australia and being very involved in the Asian market. So about 80% of the world's palm oil comes from the APJ region, mainly Indonesia, Malaysia, a little bit in Thailand. And look, palm oil is a wonderful crop. It's so versatile. It's high yielding. I think, to the next soya, it's 3 times more oil per hectare than soy oil. But palm likes to grow in those tropical rainforest areas around the middle, near the equator, and of course, that's where rainforests grow. And so it's very tempting to chop down rainforests and plant palm, which clearly is a bad thing to do. But there are some very mature palm plantations, and those that are certified mature, they've been there for decades, are certified sustainable because they have sustainable farming practices. They replace the trees as they get old, and those attract a high premium in the market. So if you have palm oil from those sustainable plantations, you get a premium. And indeed, there's some countries like Finland say you can only buy RSPO certified sustainable palm. What we found in our research that it was very easy for those to be misrepresented. If I have a cargo of palm oil that's not sustainable, and the one that is sustainable will actually sell for twice the price. There's a lot of temptation to somehow make that non-sustainable one appear to be sustainable, and that led us to something called blockchain. So the beauty of blockchain, we found, is that being a distributed ledger, there was no one actor who could go in and start to falsify the records. You need many people to agree to falsifying records. So we move our token down the blockchain, and that way we build up this immutable chain of custody. We show all the links, from this is where it arrived at a mill from a grower. This is where it's crushed to oil. This is where it was refined to oleins, and this is where it's being shipped to and ends.
All the steps in the process.
And then the end customer can take that token and be assured that they got a complete traceability all the way back to the origin, which is huge, as opposed to before they were just buying the oleins on the markets with trust, but nothing to back that.
It still requires trust, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the origin,
Yeah.
Someone needs to create the blockchain
Yep.
based on what he harvests.
Yep.
And then if they feel that they would like to have a bit more profit, they'll probably put something in that blockchain that says this is sustainable palm oil. How do you prevent that?
Yeah, look, and it's important to know what we are. So we are the accounting system, you know, we're not a certifier, you know, and I don't think it's SAP's role to be a certifier. There are many certifying agencies out there. So we always work with certifiers. Palm, there's an entity called RSPO, Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil. They certify the growers. But once we know it's certified sustainable palm, we'll keep that evidence all the way through. Also, being a digitized system, remember that these were the first time we're digitizing, I mean, literally, you know, the rainforest jungles of Indonesia where we're deploying GreenToken. We've got that digital chain all the way from origin all the way to end customer. Before it's been bits of paper and spreadsheets and goodness knows what. So having that evidence, you can also run some simple algorithms to spot some maybe things that aren't quite right. So one of the practices is to maybe put you know, I put Gloria's, I'm certified, Gloria isn't, so I put her palm through my farm. But hey, I've only got one hectare, so I should only be able to do 3 tons a year, and suddenly I'm doing 6 tons. So that's what digital systems are really good at spotting. Those very simple rules. You know, it gets lost when it's a big list of numbers. So yeah, we're bringing more assurance, more certainty to that entire chain.
You can spot the fraud then earlier on an early notice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but so still, suppose I want to create a new coffee brand which is completely green. Then I need to find a certified coffee bean plantage, a supplier, and then I can use the GreenToken to make sure that it's through the whole process it stays green. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, you don't. I mean, just having the evidence of origin is good. So we can track things like latitude and longitude. So whilst, you know, certainly those cash crops, the risk of deforestation, yes, you want to work with a certifier, but there may be other things you want to track as well, and that's the beauty of the token. You can put any evidence you want on it. You know, is there any child labour involved in this? You know, is there a lower carbon footprint process that is used? So it's applicable to many different industries.
But that all requires the requires the certification company for all parties involved in the supply chain to certify that you do not use the child labor, that you use the biodiesel, for example.
Well, mostly. So a lot of agencies will certify the origin, and then, as you say, you know, you think of cotton maybe being sent to Sri Lanka to be woven into cloth and then made into clothes. So it could be there's certification, no child labour at every stage going along the chain. But again, with the accounting system, in every case there is an auditor who comes in. You know, so we're making this certified claim. The auditor wants to come in and check the entire chain to see if that's true or not. And previously they've had to have hundreds of bits of paper, haven't they?
Yeah.
Goods receipts and, you know, delivery notes and spreadsheets and trying to match things. And now, because the token goes all the way along the chain, you just look at the token at the end of the chain, you see all the times that appears on the blockchain, and that gives you that audit trail. And it's really, that transparency is the real step change.
Yeah, exactly. So if I'm my company Green Coffee, I can show you with the certificates of all the parties involved and the GreenToken that I can have, hey, this is Green Coffee.
Yep.
Yeah,
so what does that mean for SAP's ERP system? I mean, SAP's ERP system is still working on batches and serial numbers and that type of entities, right? And you were just talking about the silo, you put everything inside.
Yep.
I can imagine that there's some sort of a production process going on that's registered in ERP. How does it connect back to GreenToken to make sure that whatever is in GreenToken is updated?
Yeah, so again, we are an accounting system. So what we can say, you'll see the volumes in GreenToken and the volumes in the ERP link. You know, so within a period, a month, a week, whatever, you know, my inventory at each point should match up with the inventory we have in GreenToken. The difference is that we can give you the exact percentage, the exact mix, you know, green to conventional. And really, if you think about it, the commodity itself is identical, whether it's conventional or green. You can't tell just by looking at it. You know, it's crude palm oil, or it's ground coffee, or it's, you know, whatever commodity is you're tracking. But what we have is that extra evidence. You know, we have evidence that the ERP isn't necessarily capturing, and also we have the real mix. You know, we're not relying on the FIFO, LIFO rules. So what you really want is when you actually come to sell the products, that's the value. You know, the downstream customer needs to know this extra evidence. So we certainly link into goods receipts from ERP,
Sales orders,
sales orders, and also any
Yeah.
any production processes you do. That gets, you know, if I'm converting palm fruit to palm oil, and there's a certain ratio, then that production order will be spent, you know, told to GreenToken. But then at the downstream, that's when you want that. That's when you can start to allocate the tokens and say, here it is, here's your palm oil, and here's 50% of it in tokens to prove what it is. So the beauty is you don't have to re-engineer your ERP, and we cope with all these complex conversions, and you still get a fantastic result at
So
the end.
you're basically pulling the data out of ERP,
Yep.
Yep.
and you don't have any changes in the ERP itself.
No, I mean we're looking possibly at the sales invoice, because that's when you want to reflect. You know, if I'm saying this is 50% sustainable, then there could be a price premium, because, you know, people want to pay a little bit more for that that evidence. But the rest of the ERP, we're just using it as a data store, goods in, goods out, and also the conversions.
Okay.
So it's very easy to implement for customers.
It's on top of.
Yeah, I mean,
It's on top of it, what we call side-by-side extension.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Gloria, what would a typical sort of implementation be that we've done?
Sorry?
A typical implementation in terms of time and effort?
Yeah, so far I'd say an implementation would take around 30 to 90 days or so. And it, as you said, it comes completely on top. We have direct integrations with S4, ECC to basically automate almost any of the actions you can do in GreenToken.
Okay.
We also offer open APIs and also CSV exports to still allow you to perform
CSV
any actions in
exports.
bulk.
Oh, the good old exports. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting into the technology. Maybe that's also interesting, because we tackle a lot of technology topics in our cafe as well. So you talk about side-by-side extension and technology. Well, maybe let's dive into the technology then, because SAP, GreenToken by SAP, but SAP does not offer blockchain, which is in the heart of your solution. So what kind of blockchain do you use?
Yeah, so we are using Quorum. So Quorum is an extension of Ethereum. So Quorum was built or designed by JP Morgan to support financial contracts. It's a private permission blockchain, and we're probably going to ask me about that a bit later, but we recently use it. It supports tokens, and that's the key underlying technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also heard that, you know, there's a lot of pressure on tokens and blockchains and that sort of thing, because of you heard the news about Tesla not wanting to accept payments through bitcoins anymore, because it's based on blockchain, and some of those blockchains aren't so green. Is the underlying technology that GreenToken is using, is it green?
Yes, we couldn't call ourselves GreenToken if we weren't that. So we talked there about Bitcoin, a great example. So Bitcoin is a public blockchain, and you know what you have to do to add a block to the chain with Bitcoin. You have to do a proof of work algorithm. You have to spend energy in trying to solve this really hard puzzle that starts with a number of leading zeros. The difficulty of that puzzle gets harder and weaker depending on how fast people are actually adding blocks to the chain. And I forget the stats, but I think the power of Switzerland or Ireland, you know, that's the kind of energy we use globally to make this work. We did some research, so to do a transaction to confirm a Bitcoin, you know, payments uses 10 to the 9 joules, so 1 billion joules of energy. Now nobody knows what a joule is, but that's about 4.3 kilowatt hours. So you know, that's probably boiling a kettle just to do a transaction. Now we use something called private permissions. We use proof of authority. So the members of the network agree that the transaction is valid. and we use typically 0.1 to a half a joule. So you can see it's a massive difference, a billionth smaller. To put it in perspective, an SAP ERP database is about 0.1 of a joule, a cloud database update between 0.1 and 0.5. So we're no more energy intensive than a normal SAP system. And our hosting, who do we host with?
We host with Google Cloud Platform, and I believe that over 85% of our database warehouses runs on green energy.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the highest percentages that were available.
And that's why I picked them.
Yes, for sure.
It was actually a question from Mark Vinneren, but you had a question yourself as well. But Mark Vinneren asked via LinkedIn a question, hey, what is the ecological footprint of the GreenToken solution? And you just explained, it's a small footprint.
Yeah.
All right. And other bits of technology, because SAP is also a technology company, business technology platform fanboy next to me. So what other technology are you using for the solution?
Yeah, we have a little bit of B2B in there, so that's with our front end to help with the integrations and the extensions. But really, as you know, there's a whole suite of technology out there in SAP. And once you're in our lovely cloud space, why would we build reporting suites? We may as well leverage, the reporting suites and BIs that SAP already has. So our main technology is really that data persistence layer and that proof of custody on the blockchain, and then leveraging all the wonderful software that SAP has within the cloud.
Yeah, because that's another thing. I mean, when I first had my enablement sessions on the topic of GreenToken, I thought GreenToken was like one of these cool startups. I argue
that we are a cool startup, but
but I just learned that it's basically part of SAP.
Yep.
And it's never been acquired or something. It's actually born and raised within the company.
Yeah, maybe that's a good question. So how did it arise? How did it born? How did you give birth to the solution?
Yeah. As I say, Nitin and myself, we had this background in commodities and seeing the world like that. So back in 2016, we were working out of the Singapore office, and we ran the agri business unit for SAP. And as I said before, a lot of palm oil comes out of. I'm making it sound like we're just a palm oil solution. We're not. We do lots of other raw materials as well. But a lot of back then, every June, July, Singapore would be covered in smog, and it was farmers burning off rainforest in Indonesia, and that would blow across to Singapore, and they'd be denying that they're doing it, and clearly you're choking, when you go downtown. So we were approached by a number of companies saying, is there a way that we can prove, we're not doing this, but people don't believe us. We want to prove that we really are sourcing without causing deforestation. So we thought this was a great idea, and we set something up called the Sustain Consortium with this is part of our normal job with a bunch of like-minded customers, and then we started developing the idea. And back then, Scott Russell was the president of APJ, and he ran a Dragon's Den, a Shark Tank competition. So we pitched the idea, and we got a bit of funding to build something. And then we spent that money and went back to Scott and said, can we have some more? And he said no. He said, but there exists in SAP this SAP IO 1BL. So
1BL is 1 billion lives?
Yeah, 1 billion lives, which is a project, if you can come up with an idea that profoundly affects the 1 billion most disadvantaged people within the world, then SAP will fund you. So long story short, 2019 we did a lot of work pitching on that, getting the idea together, and in 2020 we got funded. So Nitin and I left our full-time jobs, and we now run GreenToken, 20 employees across the world, Gloria here in the Netherlands, development in Potsdam, Nitin in Toronto with the product team. So
So all over the world.
Yeah, all over the world.
Yeah, I think it's nice that a company as SAP, which is a global company, a big company, 100,000 colleagues that joined SAP. But then there is this startup within SAP. So to facilitate new ideas and see. Is it also then the goal to at some point in time to leave SAP as a separate company, or is it just a solution from SAP that you are working on?
No, the goal ends up, you end up joining one of the business units within SAP. So we grow ourselves to a certain maturity. We launched a product, we have a product number, we know how to sell it and support it, we have a customer base, and then we get rolled into one of the SAP business units. But at the moment we're great, so we can be agile like a startup. If a customer comes with some product ideas, we can build it in. If a customer comes in a new market that we're not in, we can have a look at it and say, oh yes, this works, or this doesn't work. Great having 400,000 SAP customers. We're clearly the leaders in supply chain. Clearly people need to know more evidence and more understanding of where their things are from. So at the moment we're in a real sweet spot, and yes, we'll one day, touch wood, touch cross fingers, be part of mainstream SAP.
Yeah, okay.
Now, speaking of customers, I would be interested to know, well, maybe one or two of them.
Yeah, sure, I can elaborate a bit on that. So one story which went public, I think a few weeks ago, and has made quite some impact, is the work we're doing with Unilever on palm oil. So we've been working with Unilever for a while now to prove that the palm oil they source as one of the supply chain partners downstream does not come from deforestation areas. And while doing so, we managed to put through over 188,000 tons of palm oil through the system and really track it end to end. So we've got data all the way from the origination, so from the farmers, all the way to the end products that Unilever is producing.
And
So
then in that chain you work together with the certified parties that were already certified,
Yes.
but then you just prove with the green token that it was really green as they wished to be green.
Exactly, yeah. So we work with Unilever and their supply chain partners.
Yeah.
They all made use of GreenToken to put their data in, approve it, and really create that tokenized chain of custody, pass the data all the way through the chain.
Yeah.
What's in it for Unilever? I mean, I just learned from you that the raw material for their products, raw palm oil, at least a sustainable version of it, is about twice as expensive. Why would Unilever buy palm oil that's twice as expensive?
Look, well, firstly, they are a good corporate citizen. They have a pledge by 2023 to not knowingly or to be completely deforestation free on all their agri sourcing. The other thing is there's massive legislation coming. I mean, we know the EU and other jurisdictions are saying, you can't unknowingly buy stuff which causes environmental harm. And it's great. Unilever are real leaders there. They're real trying to get ahead of the curve and prove that they're one of those companies. And look, I think the price, yes, for the moment is supply and demand. If there's a scarcity of proven sustainable, then of course the price is going to be high. But this has to become the norm, and something like GreenToken can give you those metrics, can show you what percentage is certified sustainable and what percentage needs to be improved. And a lot of the smallholders we know at the moment are going through that certification process with RSPO. So yes, the price may be a bit high now, but over time it will become the norm, and there won't be any distinction. Yeah.
Right, so it's not only for the hipster companies selling sustainable coffee, right? It's also for the larger companies that are looking ahead and are expecting legislation in Europe.
Yeah, but there's also, our research says, and lots of research, I think even it was mentioned in the keynotes, that there's a price premium, isn't there, Gloria?
Yeah.
The consumers want to pay a premium.
Yeah, research has shown that consumers are willing to pay up to 40% more for a product that is sustainable in the CPG industry space. Yeah.
But then it would be great to have, as a consumer, you have to prove that it's actually sustainable. Because nowadays, if you look to the supermarket, then you don't know whether it is just marketing or is it really sustainable.
Yeah, you want that assurance also. I mean, well, the four of us here are also consumers ourselves, and you want to be sure that you vote with your money on the right products.
And is that something that's feasible? I mean, can I, for instance, scan my product and then see where it actually comes from?
Yes, so that's actually funny that you mention it. With one of our customers in the chemicals industry, with Eastman, we developed a consumer application. So if you look at the GreenToken core solution itself, you have the chain of custody. It's a very extensive, detailed view of all the data points that get passed through on the token. But as a consumer, you need something a bit more simple, more accessible for you just to see that journey, to see like the key information points. So we've translated that full detailed view into a very simple, easy to use consumer application where you can see the journey of the product that you're buying. So you scan a QR code, and also, for example, we can link to the certification.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's so easy to just put a label on your products, right?
Yes.
And to say it's green just because you made your sustainability goals or whatsoever. But with that, you'll be able, as a consumer, you'll be able to trace back what that sustainability label actually means.
Yeah, exactly. And also while having that assurance that the supply chain partners itself were also participating, so it's not one company at the end of the chain saying it's green, but you really have that chain of custody. Yeah.
And is it then something that you provide as a consumer application, or is it just the API on the GreenToken solution, and then that this company
Eastman
Chemicals is developing their own application, or do you develop the application for the consumers?
We have developed it ourselves. I have to say it's currently in beta release, so we are working with customers to really take that to the next level. But within the solution ourselves, at the end of the chain, we generate those QR codes basically to have that unique information related to those specific products.
Yeah, very interesting. You were a little bit skeptic in the beginning about greenwashing, and is GreenToken to be used as a greenwashing solution?
Yep. So,
are you less skeptic?
That's a good question. So, why is GreenToken not a greenwashing solution?
Because we are a digital twin of a physical asset, a physical material. So there are things out there. You know, I can buy offset credits. I can buy things. My thing's not green, but I buy a carbon offset. So fine, I pumped some carbon dioxide in the air, but I've planted a few trees. Look, you know, and I think that's a stepping stone. You know, we have to, you know, as a community, as a world, we have to do things that further all our efforts to decarbonize. But the thing with GreenToken, we often get asked, you know, can I buy green tokens? Can I buy green tokens for my product line? And that's it, I'm good. And the answer is no, because the green tokens are linked to the physical underlying material, and they track in concert with the material as it flows down the chain. So greenwashing shouldn't be possible.
Yep. And obviously, SAP is building. Yeah. Thank you. I'm very happy.
Good.
I'm overjoyed. SAP is building sustainability solutions themselves as well, right? Apart from GreenToken, do they interact with each other? Are they working together to build a sustainable?
That was also a question for Mark. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'll fan Mark. Thanks. But look, we know the bit we are good at. So we're at that upstream. You know, the first part of the supply chain. We're very good at things like commingled raw materials. So I'm mixing palm deforestation from knots. We're doing a lot with circular plastics. So this is making new plastic from old plastic. It looks identical to new plastic. So GreenToken proves that it is from old plastics, and also the origin of that. So that's a bit that we play in. There are other SAP solutions that play downstream of us, you know. So when you get to the batch traceability, there's other solutions that do that. And I see us as being, and we are speaking, we're very involved with the sustainability colleagues. We will feed into things like sustainability control towers, so they can see on the dashboard their holistic coverage on these ESG facts.
So it's basically an extension of the sustainability control tower.
We would be one of the data feeds into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And other solutions could then again feed into us. So if you think of product footprint management, it's one of the values that you may want to attach to your material and share that value, carbon value, with your supply chain partners. So yeah, we're very much looking into that.
Yeah. So happy to hear that the integration is starting from the beginning instead of, hey, we have two solutions and sorry, they cannot integrate. We have to do a CSV export and then see. That didn't happen in our life, right?
Well, it happened about 30 years ago.
Yeah. But since we were mentioning Mark sent in 4 questions. Let's see if we have tackled all those questions. How to define the chain custody and how to track it. I think we answered that question.
Yeah.
What blockchain technology is using? Do we use ecological footprint? Difficult word. And how the GreenToken solution ties into the reporting, or the rest of the sustainability reporting solution from SAP. Yeah, Mark, hope you're happy with the answers on your questions.
I think Mark and I are very aligned.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. Any topic that we did not address yet today in today's episode of this cafe?
Look, I think we're constantly, as I said, Nitin and I started this when we're in APJ, Southeast Asia, for a use case around palm, around no deforestation palm. And we're constantly surprised at the industries that we can address. So the circular plastics has been big for us. We've done POCs with BASF, Mitsubishi Chemicals, Europe, Siam Cement Company, Eastman, of course. The Eastman started us on that journey. Recycled plastic and palm, they seem completely different industries and commodities, and yet the same system works. Just needs different configuration. The tokens carry different payloads. One that we're very excited about, and I'm personally involved with, is green hydrogen. So this is, if you don't know what green hydrogen is, it's hydrogen made by passing a DC current through water called electrolysis, and the hydrogen bubbles off. Now, if that electricity is from renewable sources, then you can say with hydrogen made as a very low carbon footprint. The traditional way to make hydrogen is steam methane reforming, which basically is you take natural gas and you strip away the carbon, but what you do with that carbon ends up being carbon dioxide, or you try and bury it within the ground. So green hydrogen has a great role to play in an energy transition. You can mix it with natural gas and instantly claim a lower carbon footprint on your power generation. And I'm involved with the German-Australia Hydrogen Alliance, and is very keen to understand how that's going to work, because clearly making hydrogen in Australia and getting it to Germany isn't so easy. But again, GreenToken works there because, fine, I've got this hydrogen, but how can I prove it really is green? I can't tell just by inspecting the molecule. So all these sort of fact-based, evidence-based transparency is great. And the minute you can measure and you can start booking savings and claims, then the minute we can really move towards a completely carbon-free, sustainable world.
Which is a very nice goal. Yeah. Okay. Oh,
yeah. It immediately raised another question, by the way.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Because you were last one. Because you were talking about the mass balance.
Yeah.
You were also talking about hydrogen.
Yes.
And hydrogen is something that is extremely difficult to store.
Yes.
Because it leaks away.
Yes.
The molecules are just too small.
Yeah.
So how does a mass balance work with something that's leaking away?
Well, again,
you end up having less.
Again, so GreenToken, you make 30 k's of hydrogen. So it's interesting. Where I live, near where I live, they have an experimental electrolyzer running off completely renewable power, and in it they have this huge tank. It's as big as a truck. And I said, "Oh God!" I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Well, that's where we put the hydrogen after we've made it." I said, "That must be, must be thousands of kilos in there." They go, "No, 30." Because you forget hydrogen is number one on the elements, and so it's the lightest element, which is why it leaks away, because it's so small it can get out of all the little nooks and crannies. So a number of things we do. So firstly, we make 30 k's worth of green tokens, but we know the leak rates over a period of time, so we retire those tokens. So I put 30 in, next week I take it out, I've only got 25, but the blockchain will say, 5 kilos has leaked away. But clearly, you don't transport it as hydrogen. You convert it into something that's denser, liquefy it. A lot of power to do it, but fine if it's renewable. Ammonia could be the answer. So react it with nitrogen from the air to create NH3, liquids ammonia, which is a lot easier to store and transport. And in that way, we would convert the green tokens for hydrogen into ammonia tokens. If the power used to do the conversion was renewable, then it really is green ammonia. But yeah, these are challenges that we have to face as we move to a lower carbon world, but I think they're all achievable.
So it's not only state-of-the-art IT technology, but it's also state-of-the-art chemical technology.
Advanced chemistry.
It's very complicated.
I've had to revise all that from school. What is ammonia? What is nitrogen?
Okay. Maybe one other last question. We always have last questions, a few of last questions. What is the most asked question by customers if you hop in and they talk, hey, GreenToken, SAP, how and then also what is the answer?
People, because SAP works with so many partners, people always ask us, are you part of SAP?
Okay.
And we always say yes. I think that's that one. There's always concerns about, will my supply chain, can I onboard my supply chain? We've made it really easy. It's in the cloud. You don't need anything. You just need, even as Gloria said, the CSV file uploads, heavens forbid, but if you're in, the rainforests in Indonesia, that might be the best way to get the data into the system. So we made it as easy as possible to capture the data along the way. What else do we often
You don't require all the chains in the supply chain to be an SAP customer.
Yeah, I think that's also a good question indeed. No, because we have done the direct integration, of course, but also the open APIs, and since we work with so many long, complex supply chain partners, some of which definitely don't use SAP, some of which don't use maybe any ERP system. That's why we have the CSV, the bulk CSVs as well. Yeah. So anyone can use this. You just need an internet connection. That's important.
Yeah. And I think the final one we always get asked is people, think of Unilever. They have thousands of farmers that would source into hundreds of meals. The question is, do I have to onboard everyone at once? And the answer is no. So when we onboard a supply chain, we start with a thin slither. It might just be 1% of your supply chain, but we get that end to end, we get that working. Then we start to onboard more suppliers as that beds down. So we have a way to slowly expand the network rather than do a big bang, which is always risky.
Okay. Now, say people are interested in your solution. Where can they find out more?
Yep, so on the screen now you won't see www.greentoken.io, green-token.io, I didn't do that very well, or contact Gloria, Figaroa or James Veale through, but if you just type GreenToken by SAP in Google, we're now one of the top returns.
Twan will put it in the show notes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for joining today in our cafe and elaborating about GreenToken by SAP. It was a very interesting story and also the history of your solution. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, so important. If you want to prove that your materials that you use during the production process are really green, use or look into the GreenToken solution by SAP and make sure that we all deliver a better world for the next generation and the generations after that. Thank you very much for joining HANA Café live or listening afterwards in the podcast. Thank you and see you the next time.
Nederland. Heb je feedback voor ons? Laat het dan zeker weten. Wil je ook een keer aanschuiven in het café? Stuur ons een berichtje en geef gelijk aan waar je het over wilt hebben.